Hello. The purpose of creating this was to provide a virtual reality option for the How Much Dye is in a Sports Drink lab in the Chemistry 114 class offered by ASU. So the purpose of the lab is to determine the amount of dye in a sports drink by recording the absorbances of solutions of varying dye concentrations using a color emitter. The data was then used to plot a curve and determine the concentration of dye in the sports drink. So the portions of the lab represented here are parts 2 and 3, as parts 1 and 4 were mainly concerned with data analysis. So as we can see here, this is part 2, and students would choose a color, so we can choose red here, and choose different wavelengths to measure the absorbances of. So with 430, that would be the absorbance. 635 is that one. And then as you can see here, 470 nanometers is going to result in the greatest absorbance. So that's the wavelength that they would use in the next part. They can also go back to the color menu and choose a different color and measure the absorbances for those wavelengths. But we can move on to part 3. So in part 3, students have to make concentrations, and they can do this by dragging over the stock solution to the water. And then they'll get a screen that asks them how much water they want to add. And they would do all 4 of these in order to get the data points needed to plot. So we would start with 0 milliliters, and this would result in a concentration that's the same as the stock solution. And then they can measure it, and it will ask for the wavelength. For red, it was 470 nanometers, as we saw, and it would result in that absorbance. If we make another concentration, we could do 10 this time, and as you can see, the color is lighter. We would measure that, 470 again, and the absorbance is less because the concentration is less. So after collecting this data, students can use this data to do their analysis. I used the absorbance values that came from the TA notes, as well as this the lab report that the students did. So this would involve, the data analysis would involve graphing the data, creating a calibration curve, and using the curve to determine the actual concentration in the sports drink. In the next iteration of the lab, I would like to provide an interface like Google Sheets, Excel, or Desmos within the environment where students can record their data and graph it automatically. And this could potentially be connected to a place where students can submit the lab. So this would make data analysis more convenient as well. In the future, it could be useful to have virtual versions of other labs, especially with the increasing availability of online classes, because it's still important that lab skills and experiences continue to be offered even within these virtual environments.